The first thing Mara noticed about the building was how quiet it was. Not peaceful quiet, not the muffled hum of distant televisions and plumbing. This was the kind of quiet that felt padded, as if the walls had been stuffed with insulation thick enough to swallow screams. The hallway carpets were a dull gray, recently vacuumed but permanently stained. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered with a tired patience. The rent was low enough to make her suspicious. The landlord, Mr. Halden, smiled too often and blinked too little when she asked about the previous tenant. "Natural causes," he repeated, smoothing his tie, though it was already straight. "Heart failure. Very unfortunate. But the unit is perfectly safe." Perfectly safe. Apartment 12B sat at the end of the corridor, directly beneath the roof. Mara liked that. No neighbors above meant no noise, no footsteps, no arguments, no disturbances. The first night passed without incident. The second did not. It began as pacing, slow, deliberate footsteps directly above her bedroom ceiling. Mara sat upright in bed, her eyes fixed on the plaster. The steps were heavy enough to vibrate faintly through the light fixture. She frowned. She was on the top floor. There was no apartment above her. The pacing continued for nearly 10 minutes before stopping abruptly, as if whoever had been walking realized they were being listened to. The next morning, she knocked on Mr. Halden's office door in the lobby. "There's someone above me," she said plainly. He hesitated before answering, just a fraction too long. "That's impossible," he said. "You're on the 12th floor. I know where I live." He exhaled, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "There used to be a 13th floor, years ago. Structural complications. It was sealed during renovations. It no longer exists." "Sealed," she repeated. "Yes, closed off, completely inaccessible. Then who's pacing up there?" His smile thinned. "Old buildings settle, pipes expand, sound travels strangely." But pipes did not drag furniture. That night, the pacing returned. It started at exactly 12:13 a.m. Back and forth, the rhythm steady, almost thoughtful. Mara stood beneath the ceiling this time, tracking the path. The footsteps traced the perimeter of her bedroom precisely, mirroring its dimensions, as though someone were walking the exact outline of her space, but one level higher. Then something scraped. A heavy, grinding pull like a chair dragged across concrete. Mara's throat tightened. She recorded the sound on her phone. The dragging stopped. Something dropped. A dull, solid thud that made dust drift down from the light fixture. And then 3 sharp knocks from directly overhead. Not random, intentional. 3. Mara didn't sleep. The following evening, she returned from work to find a faint line in her ceiling, a thin crack running from one corner of the room toward the center. Fresh plaster flaked at its edges. She went downstairs again. "You need to show me the 13th floor," she demanded. "It's not safe," he replied quickly. "There's no access." "Then explain the crack." His composure faltered. "Buildings shift. It's shifting in straight lines." That silenced him. After a moment, he retrieved a ring of keys from his desk drawer. "There's a maintenance stairwell. It was supposed to be demolished during renovations. It doesn't connect fully." They climbed in silence. The stairwell smelled of rust and trapped air. The fluorescent bulbs overhead hummed weakly. When they reached the landing above 12, there was no 13th floor corridor, just a metal door bolted shut. Mr. Halden hesitated before unlocking it. The door groaned open. Inside was not a finished floor. It was a hollow shell. Concrete beams, exposed wiring, a vast, unfinished expanse stretching above the ceiling of 12B. The air was thick with dust. And the ground? The ground was worn. A clear path had been traced into the dust in a rectangular loop, back and forth, exactly the dimensions of Mara's bedroom. Her breath turned shallow. "There's no one here," Mr. Haldon whispered. A sudden, violent bang exploded beneath their feet. Mara flinched. Another bang from below. Her apartment. Something was striking her ceiling from the inside. They ran back down the stairs. When Mara unlocked 12B, a fine haze of plaster filled the air. The crack had widened into a jagged split running across the entire room. The ceiling bowed downward slightly. Another hit, from above this time, the impact answered by something below, as though two sides were testing the barrier between them. Dust poured down. Mr. Haldon stumbled back toward the door. "Mara," he began, but his voice trembled. The plaster split open with a sharp, splintering tear. A narrow opening formed inside. Darkness pooled inside it, and then an eye, wide, unblinking, pressed against the gap. The iris was pale, almost colorless, and far too large. It shifted slightly, tracking Mara's movement with impossible focus. Above them, heavy footsteps began pacing again. Below her feet, something moved in perfect synchronization. Back and forth, mirroring. Mara realized then that the footsteps had never been above her. They had always been around her. The 13th floor was not sealed. It was layered. The eye blinked once. The ceiling gave way, and as the darkness spilled downward, Mr. Haldon's scream cut off mid-breath. The pacing never stopped.
The lighthouse stood alone on the edge of the Atlantic, a narrow column of stone lashed by wind and salt, its paint long surrendered to rust and peeling gray. It had been decommissioned 12 years ago, replaced by automated buoys and satellite systems. Now it was scheduled for demolition. Dr. Elias Rowe and Professor Miriam Vale had come to document what remained before it was reduced to rubble. Lens schematics, logbooks, relics of a maritime era that once depended on flame and vigilance. With them was Thomas Ivers, a local boatman who had agreed to ferry him across the narrow channel from the mainland. He had not agreed to stay after dark. "Back by sunset," he had said quietly as they unloaded their equipment onto the rock-slick landing. "I'll wait offshore, but I won't step inside once the light goes." Elias had laughed lightly at that. "The light hasn't worked in years." Thomas hadn't smiled. Inside, the lighthouse smelled of brine and old iron. The circular chamber was narrow, the walls lined with fading photographs of long-dead keepers. The air felt thicker than it should have, as though it had not circulated properly since the last man locked the door. Miriam ran her fingers along the railing of the spiral staircase. "There's history in places like this," she murmured. "Routine, repetition, men who watched the same horizon every night for decades." Elias nodded. "Patterns," he said absently. They began cataloging immediately. Cabinets yielded navigation charts and brass instruments dulled by neglect. The generator room was stripped, the power cables disconnected. The Fresnel lens at the top was dusty but intact, a towering glass structure designed to bend light into a focused beam visible for miles. In the keeper's quarters, Miriam discovered the logbooks. They were stacked neatly on a wooden desk, tied with fraying cord. Most entries were ordinary: weather notes, passing ships, maintenance records. The handwriting was steady, predictable, until the final week. The script grew erratic, words slanted, letters pressed so hard they tore faint grooves into the paper. "The pattern is wrong. It shouldn't be visible there. It only appears when the beam touches it. The final entry was written in frantic strokes, ink smeared at the edges as if the hand had trembled violently. It learned the pattern. There was no entry after that. No explanation. No closing signature. Elias read the line twice, frowning. Pattern of what? Thomas, standing at the doorway, refused to enter the room. "You should finish before nightfall," he said. His voice carried a strain that had not been there before. They worked longer than they meant to. By the time the sky shifted from steel gray to deep indigo, the tide had pulled away from the rocks, isolating the lighthouse on its jagged perch. Thomas called up from below that he would wait offshore until dawn. He would not climb back up in the dark. The interior grew colder as the last natural light drained from the windows. Then it happened. A mechanical hum vibrated through the tower, low at first, then steady. "That's impossible," Elias froze. The lens chamber above them began to rotate, slowly, deliberately. A white beam cut across the interior wall before sliding through the glass panels and out over the ocean. Dust ignited in its wake like drifting sparks. "There's no power," Miriam whispered. The beam completed one rotation, swept the horizon, and for a fraction of a second, something stood within it, far out in the black water, tall, vertical, indistinct. When the beam moved on, the ocean was empty. Elias rushed up the spiral stairs 2 at a time. Miriam followed, her pulse hammering in her ears. The machinery groaned like a throat clearing after years of silence. "It must be residual current," Elias insisted, though his voice betrayed him. "Some mechanical catch releasing." The beam swept again. The shape was closer. Not swimming, not drifting, standing, as though the ocean floor had risen beneath it. Miriam's breath caught. "Do you see that?" Elias said nothing. The third rotation revealed more detail, a suggestion of limbs, a surface too smooth to be rock, too human to be still, and always visible only when illuminated. When darkness returned, so did absence. "It's a trick of refraction," Elias said, but he did not sound convinced. He moved toward the control panel, flipping switches that should have done nothing. They sparked faintly. The hum grew louder. The beam accelerated. Each pass shaved distance from the shore. Whatever approached did not disturb the water. No ripples, no spray. It simply occupied space when the light allowed it to exist. Miriam backed towards the railing. "The log," she breathed. "It learned the pattern." Elias gripped the brake lever and pulled. The rotation stuttered, then resumed. He pulled harder. Metal screamed in protest. The beam swept again. The shape now stood where the ocean met rock, at the base of the lighthouse. In darkness, nothing was there. In light, it was unmistakable. Tall, elongated, featureless except for an indentation where a face might have been. The beam returned faster now, the rotations shortening. Closer, closer. Thomas's horn boat sounded once in the distance, panicked. The shape did not move. It waited for the light to find it. "It's not coming towards us," Miriam realized, her voice breaking. "The light is bringing it." The machinery whined as if straining under a weight unseen. Elias looked down through the glass. On the next sweep, the figure was no longer at the base. It was halfway up the tower, not climbing, not gripping, simply existing higher than before, only within the beam. The next rotation revealed it at the level below them, featureless, watching. The final rotation slowed. The hum deepened into something almost like breathing. The beam swept across the chamber, and for a brief, paralyzing second, the light did not leave. It held. The shape stood within the room with them. Where the light touched, it had form. Where shadow fell, it dissolved into nothing. Elias reached instinctively to shut off the mechanism one last time. The beam shifted. Darkness returned.
The room was empty. The machinery stopped. The ocean below was black and undisturbed. Thomas's boat was gone. In the sudden silence, Miriam turned slowly toward the logbook still clutched in her hand. A new line had been pressed into the page beneath the final entry, the ink still wet. It no longer needs the pattern. Above them, though the machinery stood still, something unseen circled the room, slowly, patiently, waiting for the light to return.